It's 1985. A family drives to a neon-lit Blockbuster store. Friday night ritual. Blue and yellow sign glowing. Inside, aisles of VHS tapes stretch forever. Fast forward to 2010. That same store, abandoned, boarded up, weeds growing through the cracks. Now it's 2026. Only one Blockbuster remains on Earth. Bend, Oregon. It's a museum now. Tourists visit. They don't rent movies. Here's the question. How did a $5 billion giant die while a $50 million startup became a $500 billion empire? This is the story of the most expensive no in business history. Before Blockbuster, families watched movies in theatres or on 3 broadcast channels. That's it. Then Sony introduced Betamax. For the first time, you could record TV and watch movies at home, on your schedule. Revolutionary, but tapes only ran 1 hour. Most movies were longer. JVC introduced VHS, 2 hours. A full movie, 1 tape, no switching. Sony kept Betamax proprietary, 12 companies only. JVC licensed VHS to everyone, 40 companies by 1984. By 1984, VHS controlled 80% of the market. Better technology didn't win. Better strategy did. The video rental industry exploded. 20,000 independent stores opened. But you'd drive to the store and the movie you wanted was out of stock. Sorry. Come back tomorrow. Until David Cook saw an opportunity. October 26th, 1985, Dallas, Texas. First Blockbuster video. 10,000 tapes per store. Competitors had 2,000. Every new release in stock every time. The growth was insane. 50 stores by 1987, 500 by 1990, 2,500 by 1994. That year, Viacom bought Blockbuster for $8.4 billion, 9,000 stores globally, 60,000 employees, $6 billion in annual revenue, untouchable. But here's the dark part, late fees. In 2000, Blockbuster made $800 million from late fees alone, up to 16% of total revenue. Their entire business model was built on customer pain, and they knew it, and they kept doing it because it was profitable. August 29th, 1997, Scotts Valley, California. Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph incorporate Netflix. Hastings wasn't new. He'd sold his first company to Microsoft for $75 million. Randolph was the marketing genius who understood subscriptions and customer psychology. Together they saw what Blockbuster didn't. The internet wasn't a fad, and DVDs were the future. April 1998, Netflix launches DVD by mail, no due dates, no late fees, unlimited rentals, for $15.95 a month. Blockbuster charged per rental plus penalties. Netflix charged 1 flat fee, no punishment. DVDs enabled it. $5 to manufacture versus $80 for VHS. But Netflix almost didn't make it. Only 100,000 subscribers, burning cash on every rental. They were on track to lose $50 million in 2000, right as the dot-com bubble burst and investors fled. Hastings and Randolph needed a lifeline. They couldn't outspend Blockbuster or outmarket them, so they thought, what if we sell to Blockbuster? Blockbuster had the stores, the brand, the capital. Netflix had the technology and the vision. Together they could dominate. So they made a call. September 2000, Dallas, Texas, Renaissance Tower, 27th floor. Hastings and Randolph charter a private plane from Santa Barbara taking off at 5 a.m. They arrive in T-shirts and flip-flops, Silicon Valley casual. They're met by John Antioco, Blockbuster's CEO, in a $3,000 suit. Hastings makes the pitch. We should join forces. We'll run the online part. You focus on the stores. Antioco listens, nods, then asks, how much would Blockbuster need to pay for Netflix? Hastings answers, $50 million. According to Mark Randolph's book, Antioco's expression cracked. Tiny, involuntary, gone almost instantly. Randolph knew Antioco was struggling not to laugh. Antioco later said, The dot-com hysteria is completely overblown. His advisor added that online businesses weren't sustainable. The Netflix team flew home. No deal, no partnership. The exact timeline is disputed. Antioco himself denied any serious conversations decades later, but both sides agree on the outcome. Blockbuster said no. Multiple meetings, multiple rejections. Why? Netflix was tiny, 300,000 subscribers against Blockbuster's 50 million visits. Online looked like a fad the dot-com crash had already disproven, and late fees were too profitable to give up. Blockbuster's model was built on pain. Netflix's was built on convenience. Different games, and Blockbuster didn't realize the board had already flipped. Inside Blockbuster, corporate culture was toxic. Top-down decisions, innovation punished, quarterly profits mandatory. The $800 million in late fees was a drug. Remove it, stock drops 20%. So they kept it, even as customers revolted and Netflix gained ground. Viacom spun Blockbuster off with $1 billion in debt, crushing interest payments, no room for long-term strategy. John Antioco, the CEO who actually removed late fees and tried to modernize, was fired for it. Jim Keyes took over, ex-7-Eleven, a store guy who thought Blockbuster's future was in physical locations. By the time executives took streaming seriously, it was 2010, 3 years after Netflix had already launched it, too late. They underestimated it for 3 reasons. Bandwidth seemed too slow, customers seemed to want instant in-store gratification, and studios seemed like they'd never licensed content for streaming. All 3 assumptions were wrong. Broadband adoption jumped from 30% in 2005 to 85% by 2015. Customers adapted fast, and Netflix proved licensing was possible, signing Starz in 2008, then Paramount, Lionsgate, and MGM by 2010. Blockbuster's executives weren't stupid, they were blinded by success. Netflix had structural advantages Blockbuster couldn't match. A recommendation algorithm years ahead of anything else. So advanced, they offered $1 million prize just to improve it by 10%. Rich viewing data, Blockbuster simply never collected. And distribution. DVD, by mail, reached 99% of US households versus Blockbuster's 60% in stores. The subscription model itself was genius. Customers hate uncertainty. They'll pay more for predictability. No late fees wasn't just nice, it was strategic. It removed the exact pain point customers hated most. Hastings' mantra was, start with the customer and work backward. Blockbuster's mantra was, hit the quarterly numbers. One focused on customers, one on shareholders. By 2006, Netflix had 5 million subscribers, growing 50% a year, while Blockbuster's 40 million store visits were already declining. The momentum had shifted. January 16, 2007, Netflix launches streaming, clunky about 1,000 titles, PC only. But internet speeds and broadband adoption were about to explode, and streaming became inevitable rather than optional. Licensing was the bottleneck, but Netflix's data let them guarantee performance to skeptical studios. By 2012, they were spending $500 million a year on content. No trips, no returns, no late fees, just click, watch, repeat. Binge watching became a cultural habit. Meanwhile, Blockbuster's 9,000 stores, once its greatest strength, became a fixed cost liability. Rent, utilities, staff, all draining cash as revenue fell. The moat had become a trap. Blockbuster finally launched its own DVD by mail service, but Netflix already had 1 million subscribers, and Blockbuster shipped from stores instead of optimized distribution centers at roughly double the cost. They couldn't compete on efficiency. Their best idea came in October 2005, Blockbuster Total Access. Rent online, return in store, get a new movie immediately. Subscribers jumped from 700,000 to 1.5 million in months. It worked, but it cost Blockbuster $100 million more per quarter. Margins collapsed, the board revolted, and the stock tanked. Antioco, who'd built this, was fired. Activist investor Carl Icahn acquired nearly 9% of the company and pushed for cost-cutting and a return to stores. Jim Keyes took over. Ekan's bet was that Blockbuster's real estate was undervalued, but customers had already left. For Netflix, for Redbox, for streaming, the stores were worthless and the brand was damaged. The losses piled up, $1.2 billion in 2008, over $500 million in both 2009 and 2010, on top of nearly $1 billion in debt. By 2010, Blockbuster was bleeding out. The only question was when they'd file. September 23rd, 2010. Blockbuster files Chapter 11, $1 billion in assets against $1.46 billion in debt. The plan to close hundreds of stores and wipe out debt was too little, too late. Netflix already had 20 million subscribers. Bankruptcy wasn't a turnaround, it was a funeral. Dish Network acquired what remained for $320 million, less than the cost of opening a single store in 2004. Dish didn't want the brand. They wanted the 50 million name customer list. By 2014, almost every store was gone. 9,000 stores, 60,000 employees, $6 billion in revenue, gone. Only one Blockbuster remains in Bend, Oregon. A museum. Tourists take photos and buy memorabilia. Nobody rents movies. It survives on nostalgia, not business, a monument to what once was, and a reminder that even empires fall. While Blockbuster collapsed, Netflix transformed. It announced original content, premiering its first streaming-only original series, a risky bet that paid off. By 2016, Netflix operated in 130 countries with 93 million subscribers. By 2024, 280 million. Original content became the real moat. By 2024, Netflix was spending $17 billion a year creating shows nobody else had, cultural phenomena available exclusively on their platform. Competitors tried to copy the model. Disney+, HBO Max, Apple TV+, Amazon Prime, but none had Netflix's data, algorithm, and first mover advantage. You can't catch the first mover. You can only chase. Today, Netflix is worth more than Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Paramount combined. It's no longer competing with Blockbuster's Ghost. It's competing with and beating the biggest media companies in the world. Why did Blockbuster fail? It prioritized short-term profits over long-term survival. Late fees were the symptom. Quarterly earnings were the disease. It underestimated disruptive technology until it was too late to pivot, and it kept listening to its current customers instead of its future ones, treating Netflix as a niche instead of a threat until the niche became the mainstream. Why did Netflix succeed? Customer obsession over shareholder pressure, technology and data as the foundation, not an afterthought, a willingness to cannibalize its own business, DVD to streaming, licensing to originals, and the patience for a long-term vision, absorbing years of losses to build something durable. The lesson for modern companies: don't let your moat become your trap. Disrupt yourself before someone else does. Quarterly earnings are a drug. Don't get addicted. Technology shifts are inevitable. Adapt or die. And listen to the fringe, because the future usually lives on the edges. Look at today. Amazon versus traditional retail, Tesla versus legacy automakers, streaming versus record labels, AI versus traditional software. The pattern repeats. The incumbent gets comfortable, the disruptor emerges. The incumbent dismisses it, the disruptor grows. The incumbent panics. Too late. It's happening again, right now. The question is, which side are you on? In 2000, Blockbuster was worth $5 billion. Netflix offered to sell for $50 million. 1% of Blockbuster's value. Today, Netflix is worth over $500 billion. Blockbuster is worth zero, plus one museum store. Valuation is not destiny. Market leadership is not permanent. Size is not strength. The future belongs to those who see it coming, bet on it, and build for it. Blockbuster saw the future and laughed. Netflix saw the future and built it. One is a museum. One is an empire. The choice was theirs. What about yours?